Drink Life While It's Fizzy was a bit of a turning point for me. Well, a massive turning point for me in April last year, when I lost my dad. He had a hideous terminal illness, which really robbed him of his independence, and he was a really successful businessman. My dad had kind of like got ill going into his retirement. He sort of carried on working more years than most, because he chose to, because he loved his work, which was great. But I think he never got to do the things that he sort of imagined he would do in retirement. So that's really where it was born from. Watching him kind of like suffer so much, I think really was that final thing after a journey of a long roller coaster that I've experienced myself, to really go, you know what is it all about? What's life all about? And really embracing it to the full, and, you know, saying yes to opportunities and living in joy and actually living for the moment. I've had a lot of struggle. So through life, I've had a lot of loss, I've had a lot of grief that I've kind of had to navigate. You know, even back to being young, kind of like, you know, my mum and dad split up when I was 3. I kind of never really felt a sense of belonging, which I was never really conscious of until recently, really, of kind of going back to that not enoughness and judgment and criticism, and sort of not feeling like I fitted a lot of the time through my life. And I think that, coupled with, I lost my mum when I was 24, really suddenly. She died of an asthma attack at the age of 54, and kind of looking after, you know, family members. My little brother was only 13 at the time. And then sadly I lost him in 2016. He died by suicide. I've had to be resilient. I've had to be strong. I've had, you know, a lot of curveballs to navigate, and I've found those ways to find my own positivity. And I think a lot of that I've gone within. I think in the past I used to look for external validation to make me happy. And, you know, even now I live on my own, I'm happy. Yes, I would like to move forward and have a relationship and all of that kind of stuff. But when I was younger, I used to look for that for my happiness, whereas now for me, it's just like the icing on the top of a cake, if you like, rather than actually I'm probably happier than I've ever been in my whole life. So I would say my darkest time was when Nick died. I remember sitting in my garden office. My dad got diagnosed with a terminal illness. My sister wasn't well, was struggling with stuff. And within 6 weeks, my relationship broke down, and I was sofa surfing, looking for somewhere to live, and moved into rented accommodation. And it literally felt like my whole world had fallen apart. I had a sticker on my computer, and it said, "You are Naomi fucking Gilmore." And that's what my brother would say to me. He would have gone like, "You've totally got this. You are Naomi Gilmore." And that's what got me through. I used to anchor into that. I didn't know, actually, some clients came to the office a couple of weeks later, and they were sitting in my office having a chat about websites and stuff. And when they left, I realised the Post-it note was still on there, on the thing, but it just gave me a bit of a chuckle, because that's what Nick would totally say. He would be like, "You've got this." I think it's like with anything, it's about finding hope. When something devastating happens in your life like that, it is a tsunami of emotions that come up. You know, there's lots of different types of grief. Suicide is bereavement by suicide is a very complex grief to deal with, because there's a lot of different emotions. There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of overwhelm. And it's really difficult to pin the grief on something, because there's no illness to kind of like define, you know, to pin it on they died of this or they died of that. So it's a really complex grief to navigate. And I think for me, I had so many people that helped me in the early days of that, who had been through bereavement by suicide themselves. There's an amazing charity called SOBS, which is Survivors of Bereavement by Suicide. They rang me at home. They talked for hours. I rang the Samaritans one time when I was completely in a desperate state myself. And I think, having lived through that, it was like there was never an option that I wasn't going to rebuild myself to help other people. You know, that's really, I kind of look at life and think things happen for a reason. And it can be hard when you're dealing with devastating things to try and find that sort of flicker of positivity. You know, there was times when I didn't know whether I should be volunteering for the Samaritans. I put myself up for that, whether I should be training and increasing awareness around that. But I'm really feeling led to sort of sharing my story so that I can reach more people and hopefully inspire other people to make change. I want to, you know, speak in the media, on stage, and be able to connect with as many people and impact as many people as I can. Backing that up, I'm writing my book, which is very exciting. So really sharing my kind of story of the roller coaster life that I have lived, and how I've overcome some of those hurdles and curveballs. And included in that is kind of my toolkit of the things that I use on a daily basis. And then I'm also creating the tools. Not all of them are out yet. I'm still developing some in the background, but my own, my take on the things that have really helped me, if you like. So everything from like apparel, of wearing it on your jumper. I've got a new range called Personally Positive, which is coming out. That's something really close to my heart because it's going to pay it forward to mental health charities and suicide prevention charities as well. So I'm really, I can't wait for that. I do a lot of things like journaling, and I've dealt with crystal healing and oils. There's loads of things, different tools that I've used along the way that have really helped me change my life. You know, had you said to me probably 8 years ago that I was gonna, you know, walk around with crystals in my bra and meditate and journal, I'd have just said, like, I'd have just laughed, like I wouldn't have recognised that person at all. But they've, you know, I think I first got my first box of positive kind of thinking cards, I would say 8 years ago. It was actually my lovely friend Debbie who bought me a box, and that was probably one of the biggest turning points where I could kind of pull these cards, and the messages that I pulled like resonated with me and just gave me hope. In terms of what I'm proud of, I think it would be becoming a suicide intervention first aider. To do that training was incredibly tough for me. I'm emotional now because I had to relive everything, and it took me back. So that's where I did it as part of my healing. I did it to make change. I did it to empower myself and to have that knowledge within me moving forwards. And there has been, unfortunately for me, circumstances that I've had to step in as well, that I've had firsthand in my life since then. And I just honour myself with that I was able to signpost, to get help, to be able to take people through that process. And thankfully the outcomes were not the same. The proudest moment for me, I drove back, had my training in Birmingham. It was 2 days, was it 2 or 3 days? I can't even remember, 2 days I think. The second day was particularly triggering for me because it was a role play, and there was a very similar role play that came up, and it did trigger me. And I finished up in the car having emotional freedom technique tapping via video chat with my friend Debbie. I was hyperventilating, everything. It was like, it took me back to full trauma. And I was able to get back in, and the instructor said to me, if you can't get through the role play this afternoon, you're not going to pass. And I did it. And I drove back from Birmingham. It took me hours. It was Friday night. I've got a picture of me, the picture I share with my certificate. I kind of crawled through the door. My gorgeous daughters, I'm a single mom to 2 teenage daughters, had got everything like sorted for tea and everything when I came through, and they were dead proud of me. And it was like one of those moments of, yeah, that I managed to do that. As well as like a healing for me, I also really wanted the accreditation, and I really wanted the accreditation so that I could help others and step in. You know, now I'm not only trained as a suicide intervention first aider, I'm able to deliver training in the community to be able to increase awareness around suicide. And all of that is really important to me because I vowed when we lost Nick that if I could save one person moving forward, that's what I was here to do. And that's part of that. You know, I'm a big believer that suicide is preventable, even having experienced it firsthand myself. When someone dies by suicide, everybody says we didn't see it coming, yet the signs are there. The signs can sometimes be minusculely minute, but they do tend to be there. We just don't know what to look for, and we don't know how to recognise them. And there's so much stigma attached to all of it that we make judgment and we sideline it to, you know, drama queens or calling for attention or whatever it is. It's about changing the story around all of this stuff, because we still have stigma. People still are ashamed to speak about suicide, ashamed to speak about loved ones that have died by suicide, ashamed to open up, to talk, to recognise that they've got mental health. You know, we all have mental health issues at some level, but recognise that they can get help, and that it's okay, and they're not going to be seen as needy or, you know, in drama or whatever else. It's about reaching out and getting support in whatever way that is, but equally taking responsibility and being able to help yourself. I'm a massive advocate of that. But on a day-to-day basis, I think we can all help one another and help ourselves to, you know, navigate the curveballs, to remain resilient until we reach those calmer waters where we can sort of reflect back and be okay with that. You know, one of the things I do say is it's okay not to be okay. In those moments of crisis, I think people feel that they've got to be able to move forward, put a smiley face on, be there for everybody else. But actually, it's okay to say that you're not okay and to fall and to crumble, and to lie on the floor and to bawl your eyes out. But actually anchoring into a way that you can move forward from that as well, of finding that glimmer of hope.